Hello, hello. Come on in, gather round. I'm Hayley, and today I'm giving guided tours behind the scenes of my composite artwork, Storm Clouds Gather. So welcome to Storm Clouds Gather. This is one of those images that as I was creating it, I really had no idea what it was about. And this is so often the case for me. Like, I truly still to this day do not feel like I'm a creative person. But I feel like when you kind of open the doorway to creativity, then stuff starts coming in. I feel like you're sort of signaling to the universe or whatever you believe in that you're ready for ideas to come, and then your intuition sends them your way. And Storm Clouds Gather is very much a perfect representation of that. I can tell you now what I think it's about, but I wasn't creating from that story at the time. So I tell people that this is an image about depression. And it's a depiction of that moment where you feel depression coming on and you start to sort of lose touch with anything, I guess, positive in your life. And so you are gripped by this black cloud that kind of picks you up and lifts you away. And the only thing to really save you is this flimsy umbrella. Now, this image uses a technique called selective color, where you keep one section of the image in color, and it's very controversial. When I was first getting into photography, this was a very frowned upon technique. That was considered one that only beginners would use because professional photographers hated it. And this is one of those weird rules that I just don't like about photography in general. But for some reason, I decided to use it in this image, and I do actually think it really works. It just gives it that little pop of something to the story and the overall look of the image that really draws the eye in. And I just love the combination of black, white, and red. I just really, really like it. So anyway, that is the story of the image, but how did I create it? So whenever I see a storm rolling in, I always rush outside and photograph the clouds because they are so good for these kinds of images, and I just love the moodiness of the sky in that situation. So that is one I've captured in my backyard. I've added in a sky. Where does that come from? Oh yeah, so I shot that at a beach in Yamba, this beautiful place, and I've just added in a bit more sky because obviously that first image wasn't big enough. And then I shot this at a different beach, so that was in Yeppoon. And I just really liked, the rocks and things that gave the beach a bit of character, and then masked away the actual sky, kept that little island in the background. Then I just do some kind of cosmetic stuff which will make sense more later. Next, we have the girl. So she was shot in my living room holding this umbrella, had obviously a window behind me to create some backlight. And she was shot in a couple of poses. So that's obviously the umbrella pose. Then there was this pose, which was a little bit of movement in the skirt. Love this behind the scenes shot, but you got to work with what you got sometimes. And then there was a feet. So I did a jumping pose. In terms of the outfit for this, I basically had an op shop skirt and a little camisole thing. And obviously I've got a black wig on. I like to change up my look occasionally because I am playing a character. I don't necessarily want to be myself. So that is the feet, the skirt. Then I've put a little bit of clouds around her, which I've just grabbed from that image there, just masked a tiny bit out of it. And then I've just masked away her face so you can see the clouds that were behind that I showed you earlier. Now, a little touch that I really like about this image is that this spoke and this umbrella was broken. So I like that it really just sort of tells more about the state of her mental health, being that the umbrella is quite flimsy and probably isn't going to save her in this situation, but she's going to try. So then I started masking the clouds over top, just at kind of a lowish 66% opacity. And then I fleshed that out even more with another image, just to kind of thicken up the edges, giving that some grading, just to darken it up. I've added in my rain. So I'm pretty sure I've created that myself. That is something I teach inside Exposing Illusions, is how to create rain. But basically you just use a couple of filters, and I've darkened that down. Just reduce the highlights in this image, and then I'm starting to build up some more clouds now around her skirt. And honestly, these are I've warped the image to get the bit I want and then just masked it around. This is where I was starting to think that the colors weren't really going together, so I made it black and white except for the umbrella. and then really went black and white with this one. Then I'm doing just some cosmetic stuff. I think right before creating this, I had watched a tutorial with someone saying how much work they went to direct the eye in an image. And prior to that, I hadn't been doing this kind of cosmetic stuff. I was just like, I'll work with what I've got. But that really made me think about making these tiny little changes to the light and the image itself to get rid of any distractions so the eye just deals with what I want it to. So that was a really important lesson for me. Then we went mental with toning, and yeah, there's a bit there, not too much, not as many as I usually use. But basically that's really making it super punchy. I've added a bit of blue, I think, into the shadows and a lot more contrast. I think that just makes a world of difference. Also, obviously added a little bit of a vignette to direct the eye to her. Now, again, I'm just still making some cosmetic changes. Then this is a Camera Raw filter. So I've obviously gone into Camera Raw and just played around with the same settings that you would use in Lightroom just to, again, add some more detail really into the image. I think that's what that's doing. Bringing back some of the stuff we would have lost in that previous step of creating more contrast. Added in even more toning, although that is so minimal you can barely see it. Then there was a little tag in this umbrella, so I just got rid of that. And finally, just did a little bit more work to the clouds and their brightness just to darken up these darker sections and again really direct the eye straight to the subject. So that is Storm Clouds Gather. And it's funny, I recently had a competition reach out to me, and they are a competition that deals with mental health in the arts, and they said, we've been waiting for you to enter and you never do. And I kind of thought, well, I feel a bit like a fake with mental illness, but then I look at these images that I've created and I realize that there was definitely something going on there that I just wasn't really aware of. And I know that now. I've worked through so many of my issues. So I printed this image now a few times for sales and exhibitions, and I just love how it looks. So it just has this really beautiful glossy texture that comes out in it. So yeah, I am a little bit fond of this one, to be honest, and I hope you like it too. Thank you for joining me on this tour. I do hope you found this inspiring and will join me again for another artwork tour in the future. Please leave a like, perhaps subscribe, and even tell your friends so that I can keep running tours in the future. Until next time, farewell.